Solutions team. I'm here at the Civic Garden Center, and we have a friend joining us today. This is Devan, and I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Devan, and my pronouns are she and hers. I'm here today to talk a little bit about botanical dyes. I am a local artist who have always made work that's had environmental themes. I've been primarily a painter, but recently I've been working with botanical mediums and aids to make my practice more sustainable. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to make a very pretty dye with marigolds. And we'll be making little tea towels. Or this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned for a how-to of how to dye with marigolds.
Great. So we got some marigolds here to work with today. You can use both dried or fresh flowers. I have some dried ones here as well. I personally like working with the fresh flowers the best. I just feel like they're a little bit juicier. You might get, if I treated these differently, maybe I would get a bigger bang with these, and they do definitely still work, but I'm all about the fresh flowers. So when I'm prepping these, we only want the yellow leaves. So I will be clipping the green parts off, and I'll be placing them in this bag, which is kind of like a giant tea bag. These are actually reusable produce bags. I bought them at Fresh Time, and I use them for everything, so I highly recommend getting some of these. Zoom. It doesn't have to be exact. Just quick cuts. Every botanical dye that you make is completely different. It's different depending on the material that the fabric you're dyeing on, and every flower is different. So these are all just some basic rules that I'm going to talk about today. But the most important thing is always do your research when you're going out there. If you want to check out choke cherry or something, it's important to do the research specifically for choke cherry, just in case something might be different. But overall basics, you'll start with a piece of white fabric. For today's purposes, I'm using just 100% cotton fabric. Again, every single fabric you would prep differently, but for today's purposes, we're using just cotton. So botanical dyeing is a lot about prepping the fabric. It's very disappointing if you don't prep your fabric correctly and you gather all these materials and it looks really pretty in the pot, and when you pull it out, it'll go back to this color. It'll be very sad and disappointing. So your first step when prepping your fabric is called scouring, and that is basically just a deep clean. I use soda ash to scour my fabrics, which is basically just a cooked baking soda. Also non-toxic, you can get your hands all over it, it's fine. It is a fine powder, so we do recommend wearing some kind of mask when you're working with those materials. But you just heat it up. A little tablespoon will do, you don't need much. And you'll just let that sit in a pot with hot water for about an hour. And that really just gives it a deep clean, just in case there's any wax or oils hiding in that fabric. It'll just dissolve everything and make sure it doesn't create a dye resist. So the next most important step of working with any dyes is your mordant. Again, there are a million different ways you can mordant your material. For today, to keep things simple, I'm using aluminum acetate. I love aluminum acetate because it's a cold water mordant. I can bring it anywhere. It just kind of hangs out in the bucket. I don't have to keep reheating it and using energy to use it. Aluminum acetate sounds like a really scary thing, but it's actually like a skin treatment. We put in ointments. It cures like skin irritations and rashes and burns. So you also don't need to be afraid of this either. And then I have this sitting in my mordant. Again, you'll want to do more research about the perfect ratios, but again, you don't need very much aluminum acetate per water. For this, I probably added maybe 3 tablespoons of the powdered mordant, and I just filled up just enough water for my fabric to freely float around in here. You can see that in there. And I usually let that soak for at least 45 minutes. But if I want a good guarantee preservation of the color, I'll let it sit for 24 hours. Now that we got our tea bag full of marigolds ready to go, we will just dip this into our water. I have this water here on a heat source. And the general rule of thumb with most botanical dyes, you want to keep things below boiling point is the most important part. But I like floating my water around 130 degrees. That's, you know, you still want it to be hot, but sometimes boiling can kill the color. So having a kitchen thermometer is very helpful for these reasons. And this water should still be good. There we go. All right, we're floating right where we need to be. Turn it down just a hair. It's like these things have a temperature gauge, but they also just kind of have a mind of their own. So, for this, we would want this to be soaking here for about an hour, and that will get this really pretty yellow color. After about an hour, your dye water will look like this, and you can remove the flower petals. So once your dye material is prepped and ready to go, and we got some cool funky designs going on in our fabric, and our dye has been sitting here marinating for about an hour at that perfect temperature, then you can add your fabric. And you would just gently set that down in there. Let that soak. This guy too. And that's basically it. I'll keep an eye on this and rotate them every now and again just to keep everything even. And the best results come within about 6 to 8 hours, but honestly, leaving it in a dye pot for like 24 hours is the best case scenario. You don't have to keep it on the heat though. I would recommend at least an hour on the heat, but then you can just take it off and let it sit and cool in the pot, and that's really fun. Then you'll just hang out your fabric and let it dry, and then it is gorgeous and golden, just like marigolds.